And I love information, and we love these ladies here that are with us. Jessica Tarlov, Kellyanne Conway, Katie Pavlich. Great to have you, Fox News contributors all. And here we are, Kellyanne, kicking off the 2024 election, the general election, not too far away, but a primary still underway. Nikki Haley says this is a two-person race. How does she get to that calculation?
She's right. Nikki Haley's right. It is a two-person race between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And it is time to heal and unify the party the way Vivek Ramaswamy and others in the United States Senate and Congress and governorships that are coming out to endorse Donald Trump are doing. Maybe people see him as the unlikely healer, the unlikely unifier, but this is the will of the people. And Dana, whether you're in this business or especially if you're in politics and more importantly governance, the will of the people is the most important thing, and they have spoken loudly and clearly. If Bill's talking about one county, basically 1% of the state that went for Nikki Haley, then that tells the tale. Also, I'm just curious what the path is forward. These races are going to come quickly. We're focused on New Hampshire, but then it's South Carolina, it's Nevada. It's Super Tuesday. I know the Trump campaign has always thought they can wrap this up by about March 19th, if not sooner. He won the nomination May 7th, 8 years ago, so this would really put them in a position to focus. I think the question also turns to the leadership in the Senate that's had a pretty fractured relationship with the president over time. I think it's the 7 Republicans who voted to impeach him the second time, for example. A few of them are retiring, already did. But it's now the burden is on their shoulders to unify. I looked at the polling. This is pretty baked from last summer. Donald Trump in the summer, in July, was in the hovering around 40, almost 50. Ron DeSantis was in the teens, sometimes flirting with 20. And you see in the Fox News analysis, which is spot on in so many ways here in Iowa, you see there that people who made up their mind a long time ago knew all along how they were going to vote. About 8 and 10 of them were for Donald Trump. This is important because I think he also changes the rules of the game. You can spend all the money, you can have the Coke network, you can have these TV ads, you can, in the case of Ron DeSantis, invest 9 figures and still come up way short.
Okay. Katie, I want you to listen to Vivek Ramaswamy. We assume at some point today there's going to be an event in New Hampshire and the endorsement will come. Here he is late last night.
It is true that we did not achieve the surprise that we wanted to deliver tonight. And I think that that's just a hard fact that we're going to have to accept as a campaign. Earlier tonight, I called Donald Trump to tell him that I congratulated him on his victory, and now going forward, he will have my full endorsement for the presidency.
That's a pretty good outcome for Trump.
Yeah, and according to the Fox News voter analysis, Vivek was able to bring in new caucus voters in Iowa, which means he's capable of doing that in states that Donald Trump is going to be dominant in, as we're seeing moving forward. So he can be an asset for the president. Certainly with the polling, President Trump is far ahead. And if you look at the second choice, lots of Vivek voters are Trump voters as their second choice, and they're willing to translate that. That's not necessarily true for Chris Christie's voters going to a Nikki Haley or a Ron DeSantis. But in terms of last night and looking forward, I mean, Ron DeSantis visited every county in Iowa, 99 of them, and he didn't win a single one. He's going into New Hampshire down. South Carolina, Nikki Haley talks about going home, hopefully gaining some momentum there. She's down by 30 points in South Carolina. And so Republicans are looking at this and saying they want an alternative, but the Republican base and the Republican Party is with Donald Trump. When he was on stage last night, you heard him talk about senators, congressmen being there. You had a number of people standing behind him and endorsing him, coming out on the day of the caucus to do that. He is dominant. The whole strategy for alternative Republicans was that they wanted to make it a one-on-one race. They claimed that if the field was narrowed, that the math would add up to Trump not being in the lead. He's still in the lead by 10 points, even when you combine the second and third place.
It is commanding and enduring. We've been saying that. And Jessica, Newt Gingrich wrote, I think on FoxNews.com, that President Trump is leading a movement and there is enthusiasm behind him. Does Biden have that?
Well, I think so, and I think that his electoral record reflects it, and Democrats have been overperforming expectations.
But a movement?
Well, I don't. So no, he doesn't have a special name, right? It's not MAGA for us, but it's Democrats and stronger together and moving forward and winning elections. And that's what the ultimate goal is. So, yes, will Joe Biden be remembered in history in the same way as having started a movement? Probably not, but he'll be remembered in history as a winner, and that's pretty important too. And what's so interesting about this race, and I've been saying for a while now, like let's just get to the Trump versus Biden thing, because that's what's really going on here, It's rare to see two incumbents running against each other. Donald Trump's going to have to talk about his record, and he's going to have to talk about the 4 years after that and what he would have done differently. And Joe Biden obviously has his record to defend. But to Katie's point about the 49% of the electorate here who didn't go for Donald Trump, a lot will, right? They'll back him up. But we know that Nikki Haley's voters, 43%, said they'll vote for Biden in a general election if it's Trump. How is he going to persuade those people, mostly college-educated women, that he can be better for them this time around, especially with the Dobbs decision front and center? And you better believe the Biden campaign is going to make that a linchpin of what they're talking about.
All great points. I wish we had more time because I think the next chapter
We
of the story...
can't stay the whole 2 hours?
But we would love that, but folks back in New York would kill us. It's a very interesting point that you made, because if that is the general election we're headed toward, you have a Republican challenger who's going to be in and out of courtrooms for months, and you have a sitting president who had 2 public appearances last week, 2 in 1 week, while the United States military is under attack overseas. And that's a circumstance that I think a lot of people would not have predicted. I got to run, Kellyanne.
That was probably 2 more appearances than as vice president. Trump's got a lot of things to spring on us now. A vice presidential pick, a convention that's going to be spectacular. Biden's got to create some moments. I think some of the Democrats are watching Biden and Harris bleed out and just focusing on 2028. Right now, it doesn't look good for them. Trump is dominating among independents. The New York Times claims he's getting more of the college-educated folks. And look, in 2016, we coined the phrase the undercover hidden Trump voter to international ridicule. Ha, they'll still be hidden on Election Day. They're real. In 2020, they weren't hidden. They were having boat parades and out in their MAGA hats in the snow. You got more people now who aren't going to tell everybody they're voting for Trump, not because they're embarrassed, they're pretty proud, but because they don't want every night to feel like Thanksgiving with the in-laws. that your vote is private for a reason. They're going to come out and vote for him.
But Biden voters as well.
They're not hidden.
Well, we don't run around necessarily with the flags and the paraphernalia, but we show up to vote.
Jessica's about to get her way about the whole 2 hours. You see how this is working, right? Thank you. Great to be with you.
Thanks, ladies.
See you guys.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.